Hey, what's up, everybody? This is SojuTalk, your weekly shot of K-pop. This is episode 216. We are recording on November 29th, 2022. As a quick reminder, please check out SojuTalk on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe to us on YouTube and join the SojuTalk Discord and be a part of the nation. Now, it's November 29th today when I'm recording this. A lot of you guys, when you're listening to this episode, it's gonna be sometime in the middle-ish to the end-ish of December, I imagine. This is one of the episodes that we are recording earlier before we, go into our December, because while December is on, I'm gonna be in Korea. I'm actually traveling at this moment. So here we are. Today's episode is a little special. We thought we could mix it up a little bit as we are doing the end of the year stuff. If you are checking us out for the first time, because it happens to be the first time you tune into SojuTalk, we normally cover K-pop. We normally cover. Last week we ended up covering Red Velvet. Who else did we cover? We covered BoA and Mix. So K-pop groups is typically what we cover on SojuTalk, but I love K-pop. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes I like to follow what happens in the overall general Korean music scene as well, right? So I thought today it would be a really, really cool idea to kind of go over and cover some of the other genres that are really, really popping off in Korean music in 2022. So we're going to be looking at hip-hop music, we're going to be looking at indie, we're going to be looking at electronic, we're going to be looking at rock music, we're pretty much going to be going through all the genres of Korean music today. But the little thing here is that it's actually November 29th, so we're missing all the December releases. It is what it is. We're just going to have to deal with it. If this kind of topic is not it's not up your alley, that's fine. You can feel free to skip today's episode. I'm not going to take it personally. I know it's not something that everyone is super, super interested in at all times. So, if that is what you're going to do, just keep in mind, we actually don't have an episode next week. Anyways, we're doing not normal stuff today. That's why I was like, you know what, Doug, Anita, goodbye. I don't need you guys. I'm going to bring out some of the people that I think I can have a really good conversation with. So today I have a special guest with me today called KME. How you doing, man? KME, what's up?
Hello. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing quite all right. It's a Tuesday evening, so it feels a little weird because that's not when we typically record. How are you doing?
I'm chilling.
Nice. For those of you guys who don't know, KME is one of our OGs on the Discord server. He's been listening to our podcast for a long time, and he's been a person that I chat with often on the side about Korean hip-hop, R&B, other cool music that's coming out of the Korean music scene at all times, really. So I thought I could bring you in. Are you feeling excited? How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great, man. It's an honor to be here. You're saying I've been a fan of the show for quite a bit, been part of the community, so truly an honor to finally actually be a part of a actual episode. It's kind of crazy.
Oh yeah. I always felt like the reason I thought you'd be really cool for this episode is I see all the music that you post on our Discord server, and I'm like, this guy consumes so much music and so much content. It's wild. It's crazy. And you end up with a situation where I'm going through all these cool releases. I'll hear about them and I go back on the Discord and I'm like, wait, he's already gone through it already. How already? My God. How do you do it, man? That's crazy.
To be honest, at this point now, it's kind of just been doing this for 6 years. I started K music every day, which I started in 2016 doing mixes on SoundCloud and stuff like that. And I just over the years, actually, you know what? Today is actually the 6-year anniversary of K music day. Yeah.
Oh wow.
2016. Yeah. Or this day exactly. I just realized that. I posted the first KME mixtape on SoundCloud. That's crazy.
Oh my god! Congrats! I had no clue.
I totally forgot about that. But yeah. Wow. So over the years, I've just built like different pipelines. Like honestly, like subscribing to artists and distributors and certain YouTube channels or SoundCloud people that repost, and so I don't know. It just kind of happens. I go on my social media feeds, and it just kind of my YouTube feed is like the main thing too to find out new releases. But yeah, honestly it gets a little overwhelming, which I'm pretty sure we'll talk about a little bit today with what happened this year. But yeah, man, that's pretty much it. I've just been a fan of Korean music, and I just love exploring it and seeing what I started with K-pop, so and just slowly snowballed into other genres that I already liked, and it just there's just so many great artists that I feel I want to showcase and show to people like, yeah, K-pop's cool, and if you're into that, if you want to dig a little bit deeper, that's why I'm here. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect reason that I thought you were really appropriate for today's show, because K-pop's cool. Don't get me wrong. We talked about Red Velvet last week in real life right now, and I was very excited about that song. And but at the same time, I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on outside of K-pop in the Korean music scene that I think are kind of being missed out because of a lot of the stuff that takes the main spotlight. So here we are. Here's how today's episode is gonna work, right? We're gonna go through each genre one by one. On the first half of the show, we're gonna be going through hip hop, R&B, and a little combined section with hip hop and R&B, right? We're gonna be going through best song. We're gonna be going through our favorite albums, top 3 albums for both R&B and hip hop. After that, we're gonna go look at some rookies of the year, labels of the year, artists of the year, kind of like an award style thing, but really more so what we think is really, really cool, right? The second half of the show is going to focus on other genres that we think is really, really cool, right? We're going to be talking about alternative pop music, electronic, folk and jazz, rock, and we also have a wild card category for whatever else we might want to throw in. So, feel free to skip around in today's episode, go back and forth, depending on what you're interested versus what you're not interested. And what I'm also going to do for today's episode, because I know that this is not the kind of content that's typically familiar with a lot of folks tuning in, I'm gonna try to play some of the clips of the songs or albums that we talk about, so that you guys have a better understanding of what we are doing, that we are talking about. Okay, that being said, we're gonna dive right in. We're gonna move right into hip hop. We are gonna start off with the best song of hip hop of 2022, or what we thought were our favorites. Do you want to go first, KME? I can go second.
Yeah. I'll go ahead. So for my top pop song, Korean hip hop song, I went with "Broken Ferrari" by Homies. The reason I chose this is actually because there were so many great releases this year. I had to rely a lot on kind of like my Last FM Scrabble numbers, and I was just kind of going by the data a little bit, and I realized that this is like, out of all the Korean hip hop songs, I listened to this one the most, about like over 50 times apparently.
Wow.
But yeah, I love it. It came out I think earlier this year. I just love I've seen from Homies over the last like few years, man. It's just a cool little rise. And so with this song, to bring some people that don't know up to speed, they're kind of like a rags to riches type act, and so they're part of Young and Rich Super B's label. And so with this song, last year they kind of blew up, went viral. I'm sure some people know about it. So they released an album in December of last year, and now they got money, and they came from kind of poorer backgrounds. So now they're buying all these cars. They got AK bought a Ferrari, ended up crashing it. And and the most baller, and like one of the most baller moves ever. They're just like, you know what? So what? I crashed it, and then we're gonna make a song about it. So they made a song called "Broken Ferrari."
Damn.
And so they even in the music video they put the crash like video. They had it on video, in the music video. Oh God, sorry.
Oh god. Okay, so they crashed their Ferrari and made a song about it essentially.
Right, and then
Oh
in the
god.
song they're still flexing and they're still being like, you know what? So what? I bought I crashed my Ferrari. I'll just buy another one. But I think he ended up actually fixing his. So, but yeah, it's just like one of those. Yeah, it's just one of the. It's a basic trap hip hop, kind of bombastic. I think I can't remember. I'm pretty sure Lean Smoke probably.
Lean Smoke would be
Their
a good
production.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I know. I feel like that's always like the biggest flex, isn't it? Right, where like it's when you're flexing that you have a Ferrari. It's like, okay, fine, you have a Ferrari, whatever. When you're saying I have a broken Ferrari and I can just go buy another one, I feel like that's another layer of like degeneracy that I'm willing to really appreciate. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Homie's has had a pretty strong career in the last year or so. I remember Siren Remix was incredibly viral in Korea, and then they were featured on Zico's track this year, Sepping, and that blew off a lot as well. That was, I mean, it was a TikTok thing, but Broken Ferrari, I do recall listening to it a couple times, and I was like, this is kind of banging. And for the most part, I'll be honest, I don't like all of their songs. And this definitely was one of the ones where I was like, this is kind of a banger. So yeah, that was a great pick, man. That was a great pick. Okay. We're gonna move on to my pick for favorite hip hop song of the year, and that is Priceless featuring Fuego by Paulo Walto off of his recent LP Dirt. Now Priceless by Paulo Alto is I think it's actually the title track. I don't quite remember exactly. But it's one of those tracks where rapper Paulo Alto is less of a good vibe, feel good guy and more of like a angry man, you know? The chorus is a loop of a sample from a song called 날갯짓 by Dead P off of his LP Undisputed. And Paulo Alto was the featuring artist on that track. Now that track came out I think in 2007 or 6 or something like that, like way back when Paulo Alto was like was a little kid, back when Paulo Alto was going through his like mid to early 20s stage, so a completely different part of his career. And I think the track does a lot to kind of mirror that. He is, talking about where he began, how he began as a hip hop artist. And then bringing it back to 2022, where he's like, all of that still happened, and I'm still here, and I'm still me. I haven't changed. Fuck you if you don't believe me, kind of a thing. And then there's like a radio sample at the end, which I thought was like really heartwarming, where I think I'm gonna assume it's like a radio sample from like 2007, where there's a radio host and he's like, oh, we have a rookie rapper in the studio today. He goes by the name of Paulo Alto. Could you please introduce yourself? And you hear this young, tiny Paulo Alto come on, and he's like, oh, hi, everyone. I'm trying to do music. I'm a part of this label. Hello, everybody. And I'm like, that's so cute. Like, my God.
That's awesome, man. I love Paulo Alto. He's one of my top two favorite rappers. So to see him come out with this after the dissolution of Highlight, just really nice to hear him back on his shit. And then with like featuring Toigo is just a fun rapper who's part of the Sungsu Bridge guys. He has a little flavor to it in there too, and I love that he always gives support to a lot of lesser known artists like that. So yeah, I love this song. The sample's great.
I didn't know Paulo Alto's your top 2 favorite rapper. That's complete news to me. I'll be honest.
yeah. Palo Alto, and it always switches between Palo Alto and Benzino.
Okay, yeah, Benzino's good too. I low-key I was hoping he drops his album so I can put it on my top 3 album list, but that didn't happen. Same. So where's Nowitzki, Benzino? Where is it? All right. Well, that's our favorite songs from Korean hip hop this year. We're gonna move on to top 3 albums from 2022. Since you went first last time, I'm gonna go first this time. And we're gonna start from the bottom up, third place to second place to first place. Cool. All right. In third place for me, I have Triple A or AAA. I don't know which it is. By none other than Lil Mosh Pit. Lil Mosh Pit, for those of you guys who are not aware, is essentially women of Groovy Room. Now, women, when last, I think it was like 2021 or something, on April Fool's, he was like, I'm debuting as Lil Mosh Pit as like a solo rapper. And I was like, this is the stupidest thing ever. What is this going, what is he doing? There was like a really like edgy photo on Instagram and whatnot. I was like, oh, this is just stupid. And you know, it was an April Fool's joke. I was like, whatever. And he came back with this album under Lil Mosh Pit, and I thought this is gonna be something stupid, and I play it, and man, it is like a very short project full of like I don't know, it's very, very trendy, it's very trend forward, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's very grimy, it's very grounded in terms of, you can hear where he pulls his influences. And it's, to me, it feels like a rediscovery, revival of Groovy Room as a producer, because if I think about Groovy Room, and for those of you guys who don't know, Groovy Room is is a duo producer under Higher Music, and they began as hip hop producers, but the way I see them, they've been doing a lot more of like indie pop music as well, R&B music as well, and I was like, that's pretty cool, less of something that I'm like interested in as a hip hop fan. But then in an interview, Hyman later revealed that he felt like he was growing more distant from the music that originally made him interested in hip hop, and a lot of that really shows in this album. You can really tell what kind of music he's really into. You can really tell how he made it his very own. A lot of the artists on the project are incredibly talented. We have my favorite guy, Paul Blanco. We have some of the younger, more popping off folks. Polo the Red is doing a great job here. We have Reddy and Swervy from their what was their duo called? Shoot, I forget. Heartbreak, was it? Hardcore,
yeah.
right? They're great. Coogie, Lil Lamar's, Our Goat, everyone's favorite man, Sick K is on here as well. So it's a really well tied together compilation album produced by Lil Mosh Pit, featuring everybody that's kind of hot right now. Have you checked out AAA, KME?
Yeah. Crazy, because I was thinking the exact same thing that you're just talking about. Because, be honest, with like Groovy Room, I feel like they've gone the last couple of years, especially since being on like With the Money and the VVS hitting and HSR. They kind of, I'll say they devolve. Not devolve. I don't want to say devolve. They've kind of keep safe with their stuff, or go for like the hits, and
they've
it's
shifted
a lot
a
of
little
the
bit.
same,
Right?
Yeah, and a lot of it has the same kind of tone to it and energy. So this was a dope kind of break from that to do a little something, like you said, a little more trendy, a little Playboy Cardi-ish. I really loved it. It was cool to see, like, you know, like, okay, Groove Room's this thing, and then Women's gonna come in with a little Mosh Pit and do his own thing. So yeah, I really like this one, especially that main title track, the Yo, with Sokodomo. Sokodomo is one of my favorite newer guys, and I just love how weird he is, and he's like, "Where's my bottle?" That's my favorite part.
Oh, that was a really good impression, actually. Oh my god! Because the moment you mentioned Sokudomo, I was like, what did Sokudomo sound like on this track? What did he sound like? And then you did that. I was like, oh yeah, that's him. I do think it's a little weaker in the second half. And that's something I run into with this project often, is like kind of lose focus after the Ready Swervy track. But that's not to say it's a bad thing at all, because I feel like the pacing loses track a little bit, but at the same time, it still delivers on what it needs to do. So not really complaining here. Also, if you want to find out on who is like popping off recently in K-hip-hop, they're here. Most of these folks are here. This was my first time listening to Paul the Red on a track, Cash Bang on a track. and GGM Lil Dragon as well. What a weird name, GGM Lil Dragon.
Yeah.
You can tell how low IQ this is, and it's a and it's great. It's great. You're not listening for like high quality. Or actually, well, it's all high quality, but like I'm listening to, shake my butt, not to like listen to Mozart, or you get the idea. And it delivers really, really well on that. So there you go, AAA by Lil Mosh Pit. What is KME? What is your third pick? Top favorite album of 2022?
So my third pick is an album called Yellow Fever by an artist named Young Jaundice. Yes, that is his name. It's kind of weird. I'm not too exactly sure the origin of that.
You're supposed to support him.
The jaundice part is kind of weird. The young, it has a different spelling. I think it's because he's kind of one of the rappers that his influence, and I think went to school or something in Toronto.
Did he? Wow. Okay.
And yeah. And so Young is a street in Toronto, kind of like a Don Mills situation, because Don Mills is also a location in Toronto as well.
Right. Okay. Just for clarification, Young Jaundice is spelled with a YONGE.
Yes.
Okay. That's fine. That's cool.
So into his album, the reason I picked this was because it was my most kind of like surprise. I did not expect to like this album as much as I did, but when it came out, I was like, oh, let me check this out. And man, it's really great. It's kind of what would you say, like a little sampling too of like just classic hip hop. There's a little bit of East Coast boom bap shit. There's some West Coast stuff. There's basic trap stuff. So he performs so well on there. There's a lot of great features. And yeah, I'm interested to see what he will do in the future, since his label Dippin' Carl's actually dissolved too. Big trend this year is apparently. But yeah, there's some down tempo stuff with like Kunta and Palo Alto's on there. HS is on there. It's kind of like with AAA with Lil Mosh Pit, where it's just kind of a sampler platter of hip hop styling. So yeah, that's my third best pick.
Yeah, no, I didn't spend too much time with the album, admittedly, but I do recall going through it, and it was honestly pretty impressive. Because to be quite honest, if I think about the folks who were coming out of Dippin' Curls at the time, I wasn't really big on these folks. Chogonge, I think he's viral, he's incredibly popular. I think and he deserves all of it, but at the same time, it just wasn't the kind of music that hits with me. Same with Brown Tigger. I didn't know who Wallow was. And then people were like, Young John, this is kind of cool. You should check it out. I was like, okay, I might as well check it out. And I recall listening to this, and I was like, this is very much not what I expected based on what I know about the other two. And in fact, very, very well put together with very solid production. And I think, if I recall correctly, this was the first time I heard NSW Yoon on a recording. And I mean, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it's because of Show Me the Money season, but he did take a lot of the spotlight there too, and I think a lot of the featuring artists did a really solid job as well. So maybe you want to check it out for even that reason too. I don't know. All right, cool. Let's move on to the second favorite albums of this year. I'm gonna move on. My pick for second album of this year is Gen by CGEM. In Korean, it's pronounced Gen. In English, that's GHENN. No idea why I translated in that reason. I think. But honestly, this was a album that I changed my opinion on over time. First time I heard it, it was a big letdown. CGEM is one of those artists who was on Show Me the Money a couple years ago. I think Show Me the Money season 5, if I recall correctly. He was a very aggressive, kind of rapper that has a very tight flow. And then he was gone for a couple of years, and he came back with his previous EP Kung, which was emo rap, very auto-tune focused. But the way he raps, I think, was, dare I say, game changing almost. Because to me, as a Korean speaker, first and foremost, it really felt like he was changing up how Korean can sound in the context of rap music. The way he utilized syllable to syllable to syllable and how they sound against each other, I think it is wild and just not seen before. And for a while, I thought it was just me being stupid. But then I heard people come in. Other folks were saying stuff like, "Oh, this is like the rhyme revolution. It's basically modern rhymes by Verbal Jin all over again." I don't think it's that to that level, but I do think it was pretty game changing in that he opened up a new level of something. Ken is kind of a build off of that. The rap style is very, very similar. If anything, he's gotten even better at what he's trying to do here. A lot of the words he is saying kind of slur into each other in a very natural way, where it sounds like a mumble rap, but at the same time, I'm listening to it. I'm like, okay, I can kind of catch most of what he's saying. And I think that's incredibly impressive. The production of all this is incredible as well. It's a mix of his last work was more emo. This one was more psychedelic and a little more electronic. And there is a very good consistent mood that kind of happens throughout the album. And I don't know, it's very, very strong and very, very well built, very, very well grounded. Shout outs to the producer, J Electronica, if I remember correctly. I'm gonna need to look that up real quick. Actually, it's not J Electronica. I don't know what I'm saying. I can't
remember the.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the
producer
on that one.
God, I liked him too. I submitted him as Jay Kidman. Good lord, Jay Kidman. Good lad. Yeah.
Jay something.
It's always Jay something. Jay Park, Jay Kim. All right. Yeah. I don't know. How'd you do you remember? Have you heard this album? Do you recall it?
Yeah. When I saw this on the list, I was like, oh man, that came out this year. This year it was crazy. But yeah, I liked it a little bit more than Kyung, which another one that when that came out, I was kind of like very hard to get into, but I definitely recognized the cultural significance of it in the Korean hip hop scene. This one I definitely like. It's a very, very much more vibey type album.
Oh yeah.
I think my favorite track on there is that church song where it has like this obnoxious, like, I don't know what it is. It's like a video game like siren in it.
Bum 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 bum.
Yeah, it's nuts. The production on it is amazing. C-Jam has always been one of those. Yeah, like you said, it's been around a while. So I liked it. It just wasn't an album I went back to quite a bit. I think I added just that church song to my playlist, my daily rotation playlist, and it just kind of looped that. But the rest, I was like, okay, I listened through it. All right, this is cool, but it's just something I never went back to very much.
No, I understand that. I do think it's one of those albums where you love it or hate it. Because his style of rapping, if you're not a fan of the way he does things, I think that's perfectly understandable. But yeah, it might be for you. So who knows? Go check it out. All right, moving on to your second favorite album of this year, KME. What's your second favorite pick?
So my second pick would be Dirt, the aforementioned Dirt from Palo Alto.
Hey.
So we talked about Priceless already. Yeah, this is like, as I said before, he's one of my favorite rappers. Reason I picked this was because it's just, their highlight banded basically at the beginning of this year. I think Palo Alto just kind of wanted to just go back to being an artist and not being a business. Headaches that come around with that.
Right.
So he signed to Daytona Records and finally actually put out an album. There you go. You're wearing the shirt. You're wearing the shirt representing. And I think I was kind of worried, like, okay, what is this gonna sound like? What is he gonna try something new? Try to reinvent himself? And when even when you just start the album with like has a little kind of a piano interlude, I'm like, okay, where's this going? And then it just drops into the first track, Survivor, which is like, oh. So in my mind, once it started playing, I just heard that LeBron James meme where he's like, "It's too easy," because it's like he's just so effortlessly dope When it comes to like, I'm like, dude, okay, this is why he's one of the greats and one of the one of the best. He got great hooks in here. I believe the whole album's produced by, or mainly produced by Yossi, former Highlight as well. Yeah, some decent features on there. Yeah, there's only two credited, and then I think Jerd is on background and Cheetos. But yeah, everything's great. My favorite track is definitely that Survivor. Yeah, it's just great. Really, really great, really great comeback for him.
I do think if this album came out earlier in the year, this could have been in my top 3 album of the year as well. I'll be honest. The only reason I didn't put it on here because I felt like I needed more time to sit with it because that's how much I like it. Because I remember I kind of approached it a similar way as you did. Because I remember looking at all the marketing material coming out of it, and they were like, "Oh, we might drop the track list soon. I don't know. We don't know." They were like, "We don't know what's going on," and they were like, "Oh, we might release the CD at the offline store next week. We might. I don't know." A lot of the marketing and communication around this was very like vague, and I was like, "What is Daytona doing? It feels like they're not really putting in the work that they need to." So my expectations going in was actually quite low, because I don't know, it kind of felt like they kind of put together something last minute and just pushed it out. Which stuff like that happens. Maybe it was a mixtape. I don't know. But then I hear this thing after the piano interlude, which I mean, I liked it, but that kind of just happened. And then you go into Survivor, which also was like you mentioned, a great track. He's like, means and you go into this whole thing, and I'm like, wow, like Paulo Alto, I don't know what pissed him off, but he's pissed off. Like, if I remember correctly, later in the album, there's like Memphis rap as well, and I mean, there's a lot of positive moments as well, but like, it's one of those moments where you can tell Palo Alto doesn't really need to give a fuck anymore because he's not the CEO and the main boss anymore. He can just go off if he wants to. And you can tell it works really well. It's great. Okay, cool. Anything else to add about Dirt before we move on?
I think that's it. Just check it out. I think too, a lot of it, the timing of its release was kind of unfortunate because it was like the week before the Itaewon tragedy.
Yeah.
So it kind of got, obviously overshadowed by more important things. So I think the release got kind of shadowed by that. So maybe a lot of people didn't get to check it out, and so be a good dope one to go back to. To me, I think if you're gonna listen to one Korean hip hop album this year, I would make it. And you're not really into Korean hip hop, I would make it this one.
That I would kind of agree with that, because it is the most standard hip hop that goes around trap, old school, boom bap, trendy stuff. It covers most grounds and a lot of different moods as well. So yeah, all right. Moving on to my favorite top 1 Korean hip hop album of the year, I have Yu Yu by Gongongu. This is an artist called Gongongu, stylized as in GONGGONGGOO and then 009. I understand that sounds like a stupid name. I'm doing the same thing you did earlier, aren't I? God damn it. But okay. But in defense of Gongongu over here, he said he wants his name to look like a picture, like a drawing. I don't know if it actually does. I guess there's a lot of circles now that I'm looking at it. Maybe that's what I was going for. But if you look at Gongongu, he is one of those artists who is a little too indie and a little too underground. Largely because he keeps himself that way. He's one of those people who like put a mask on whenever he's performing or interviewing. Nobody knows what he looks like in real life. He apparently has very few connections with the rest of the industry. I think Justice gave him like a shout out a couple times. And I recall checking out his mixtape a couple years ago, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. He sounds like a pessimistic, very sad guy who's also very angry. And that's kind of the mood I enjoy. So that's kind of what I got off to. And then out of nowhere, Yu Yu dropped. Yu Yu, I think they just couldn't figure out a proper translation for the title, but in Korean, the album title is also Yu Yu. stylized in with the two you verbs, which what I'm trying to say here is it looks like a crying face, which is actually very representative of what the album is about, because it feels like a very emotional cry for help. It there is a narrative that is broken down into so many bits and pieces about, I guess, spoiler alert, but the guy throughout the album, he loses his family, he loses his girlfriend, he loses his friends, because some of them die, some of them are bad people, some of them leave him because he was a bad person. And throughout the album, you watch a normal man turn into an insect, and people thought he was gonna be a butterfly. Turns out he became a moth. He was unhappy about that, so he became a monster. I butchered that analogy there, but essentially it felt like a tragedy of a guy who spirals deeper and deeper and deeper into depression, and until you get to the ending of the album, which I think there's two ways to interpret it. One, he gets over his troubles and is able to move forward, or he dies alone in an apartment in the winter. I think it's a lot of things in this album is left up to interpretation, and you can even if you don't understand Korean, you can kind of understand the vibe and the mood he's going for, because there is a lot of chopped up samples, a lot of noises that first of all, it feels very experimental and very glitchcore, but they do an amazing job of portraying the mood he is in and why he is in that way. And that's why I kind of decided to recommend this album as my top one favorite, in particular because there are albums that do that just on a lyrical level. And I think those albums are great. Don't get me wrong. Kundi Panda, Lee Hyunjun with LIT from earlier this year do an amazing job with that kind of stuff. But I have trouble recommending that to an English audience, because you need to understand the lyrics to do all that. Understanding the lyrics to Yu I'm sure it'll help, but to get the emotions and to get what he is kind of going through, what kind of troubles he's going through, you don't need to understand Korean with this album. You can kind of tell, like, all the devices are still there. That's what I would like to believe, I think. On the other hand, I do think one of the rising trends in K-hip-hop has been the use of experimental sounds. A lot of electronic, industrial, hyperpop kind of sounds. Yu definitely stands out as one of the more well-produced ones. It's very solid in production. All the glitchy noises they all have reason to be there, both in terms of sound and in terms of playing a role in the narrative. So, yeah, an album like this doesn't happen often. I think it's truly one of the best albums of the decade, easily. Yeah, there you go. Yu by Gonggongu.
Yeah, man, this one is for me, it's kind of the same thing with like the CJAM album, where I kind of listened through it and I was like, oh man, this is crazy, and the production is insane. But yeah, like you said, you giving the context behind the lyric and the theme of the album definitely makes sense. For the audience, I am not Korean and I don't speak or really understand a lot of Korean. So I was like, yeah, this was definitely an album where I was like, okay, I might need to learn the lyrics and to appreciate this more. But you can definitely tell, because I remember listening through it and I was like, okay, I need to be in the right frame of mind and mindset to consume this album. So it's definitely not one that I didn't go back to, but I really love that song, Concentration, because the beat and everything feels like a lot of the hip hop I grew up with.
Yeah.
From like the 2000s and stuff like that. So, yeah, amazing album. I feel like I'm a little bit too smooth brained to really appreciate it. But yeah, I can see why you picked this. It's amazing.
If you enjoy artists like like XXX Simya Kim or Just This is gonna be up your alley. It's kind of in that realm. It's very negative and very pessimistic, and I totally understand what you mean by, like, you gotta be in the right mood for this. For myself as well, it's not an album I can just listen to on a daily basis, because if I do, I'll go crazy. I just said it's an album about a guy who possibly died at the end. I mean, the guy is still alive. Don't get me wrong. He's doing interviews and performing. In the narrative, maybe he passes out. Maybe he moves on and is able to succeed. Based on the concentration track and the track following that, as if it's the end, that's what I would like to believe. One cool device that I can kind of like break apart on the spot is at the final track of Yu Yu, called Yu Yu. There is like clips of news playing about like people, like younger people dying alone during the winter, because they're unable to afford rent and whatnot. And then there is a lot of audio clips about his former friend and his former girlfriends. And then it cuts near the very, very end. It cuts to what I presume is literally the person who was helping him record this. And the person goes, "Hey, was that a good recording?" And they're like, "Yeah, that was great. That was great." And you kind of end up in a situation where like you're kind of questioning where it's a piece of art and where it's reality, and the fine line between that. So there you go. Yu Yu by Gong Gong Gu. All right, that was very long. Let's move on to your favorite album of the year, KME.
Ooh, so my favorite hip hop album this year is Second to None, which is a Freddie Casso producer from VMC, a collab joint with Diesel, a rapper from newly signed to Deja Vu Records this year.
Let's go.
Or Deja Vu Group. Yeah, and this album, I love it because it's very much in the vein of like Ad Villainy, MF Doom type, heavily sampled. It's got a lot of like mafia movie, Scorsese, Tarantino samples and stuff like that. It's just a lot of like it's like dusty old man hip hop, which is like definition of what I kind of was into this year. I considered actually putting my 3 albums as this one. Unofficial Boy and Jazzy Moon had a like straight up similar type boom bap album called Fuck You. It was like a little collab. And JJK, Unofficial Record 3, which is like just, you know, he's an old school rapper too, like Palo Alto, that's still doing it and just still hitting on every cylinder.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Second to None, it just totally fit the vibe of a lot of stuff. Like I was really big into that Alchemist and Rock Marciano record, came out this year, so it's very much in that style, just kind of lo-fi, sample heavy beats, and then Diesel just kind of just goes ham on top of it. That's one of the reasons I really like Diesel is his flow. I don't know if his lyricism or his technique is very technical or what have you, but it's more in the manner of his flow and his delivery that just it's something I love. So yeah, Second to None. I think I would recommend a track. I definitely got to go with the title track, one of the title tracks, Hell Chosen, featuring Oakley.
Yeah, this has been like one of the trends in K-hip-hop has been like a revival of like, as you put it, dusty old man hip-hop music. For me, I remember listening to this when it came out, and I was kind of convinced of Diesel as a rapper because previously I was like, all I've seen him was stuff in 30 Crew, which he's a part of with Kundi Panda and a bunch Simba Zawadi. Is that still what he goes by? Simba Zawadi? I forget. I
think he just goes by Simba
just
or
Simba?
Son Simba now.
Okay, Son Simba. A lot of those like hard hitting old school rappers, and Diesel stands out because he's very much like and he's like, okay, you know. And he's one of those. He used to be one of those people that I can only listen to for a short amount of time, and I can't handle a full project from this guy. And I think that changed with this album because I was like, okay, now that the playing field, now that the context of it is set up perfectly for this guy, it makes sense. Same with "Fuck You" by Unofficial Boy and Jazzy Moon. This time the other way around, where like I kind of thought I couldn't handle beats of this color for too long, but with the rap style of Unofficial Boy, I think it created a very nice little project that not only gives like an homage to old school rap music, but feels like it's almost a 2022 upgrade. You know, it's like a here's an update, folks. Come check it out, kind of thing. Second to none. Great album. All right, we're gonna move right on to R&B music. We're gonna go through our favorite song of the year, and then top 3 albums, just like we did with hip hop music. All right, you want to take the first turn this time?
For the best song, right?
Yep, favorite song of the year, best song.
Cool. So for my R&B song of the year, and at the time people are hearing this, I will have dropped my KME end of year things or whatever. And this is actually my pick for a song of the year as well. And that is Offline by Rad Museum featuring Dean and Lehigh. Yeah, so like Rad Museum from Dean's label, you will know. His long-awaited album that's been a few years since he last put out a project. Phenomenal, but this track definitely stands out. It's a very groovy, kind of fun banger. Our banger trio, like with him, and then of course Dean, who we rarely ever get of, and then of course Lehigh, who has made it a reemergence post YG, and signing on to AOMG and doing a lot of more of these type of projects and R&B stuff. And while it's groovy, the message with it is probably the main reason I really love this track is because it's basically, you know, about checking out, getting offline, and things being a little bit too overwhelming, and dealing with celebrity, and whether, you know, Lehigh's verse is kind of a lot about like worrying about messing up, and so the chorus is kind of just talking about like, I want to get away, power everything off, like, you know, technology and people talking crap online, and I just really love the song because it's not only is it cool to listen to, but it's also like actually has some substance and by some 3 really great big artists. So yeah, and that is the official KME song of the year.
Wow, song of the fucking year. That's crazy, man. I will admit, when this was first dropping, this was the first track I checked out because of Dean, and I'm like, okay, I guess you're still alive, Mr. Kwan. Where is my stupid album that you promised me 6 years ago? Good Lord. And every time I see his name, I'm like, all right, I guess I gotta check it out. And it was crazy. I really like the way the melodies flow. And I like the album too, but this track is one that I go back to particularly a lot. There's a couple more, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about it again. But yeah, no, Offline, lovely track. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna move on to my favorite song of the year with R&B, and that is Unstable featuring Harim by Babylon. Now, this track is off of his LP, I believe, called Ego 90s, which is an entire homage, which feels like an entire homage to 90s R&B pop music in Korea. And I say Korea in particular because a lot of the way the melodies flow is very, very clearly influenced by music of that generation. And because you have a lot of those names making their appearances here. This track in particular has Harim, who is one of the most important players of like ballad R&B music of that generation. Other tracks, you have Jung-hwa on it. You have tracks that are produced by Lee Hyun-do of Deuce. You have another track produced by Yori. You know who that is. She's at the bottom as well. It's one of those albums that do a lot. This track in particular, I picked out because I think it does a great job of portraying that generation. But Babylon is doing a great job as well of really reinterpreting it into his kind of style, his kind of music. And normally, I'll be honest, Babylon is one of those people that feels a little too much for me. I don't know, it's just too much expression, I guess, too buttery, too much grease up in my grease region. I don't know, that feels weird. I'm sorry I said that. You know what I mean, though. You're right, like
Grease region,
right? They're okay. It's like eating
right.
a
I know
piece
what you
of
mean.
right. It's like eating a piece of fried chicken, but like juices. There's too much juice, which sounds bad, but like when it's greasy, it's just too much grease. That's how I always felt about Babylon. But with a lot of this album, I felt like that was very strangely very appropriate. And this track did that really, really well. And I think a part of it is that he was toning it down a little bit compared to his other albums. I remember checking out Hardy from, I think, last year, which played into all of that a little too much. And I think this was a wonderful, wonderful update to his discography. Unstable by Babylon. Check it out. Awesome. You want to go straight into the top 3 albums of the year, KME?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Should I go first or do you want to go first? We have a bit of an overlap here, I realize.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
You go first.
Should I go first? Okay. Well, speaking of Rad Museum, I have Rad by Rad Museum on my 3rd favorite album of the year. Offline is definitely a wonderful track. I do think that's my favorite track on the entire project. But something about Rad Museum, he's definitely had a huge upgrade in the past couple of years. I remember listening to Scene, I was like, okay, this is Dean's friend. He's doing the whole lo-fi R&B thing, which is cool. But it's what it is. It's kind of cool, and that's about it. Rad feels drastically different. There is a lot of cool messages on here that feel very grounded, and very somewhat pretentious almost in a very cool way, because the whole album is about, I feel like the overall message is like, hey, we're humans and humans are beautiful. I feel like track 1 and the last track does a great job portraying that, where he's like, people are God's work, we're fucking beautiful, go for it. And it feels like we're going through different aspects of that with the entire album. Maybe I'm reading too deep into it and I'm giving it more narrative than it actually has. But I feel like that's not only the thing I liked about this album, because if you look at the way he sings, the melodies keep going in strange directions that I've never expected, that I don't expect, and they all kind of work. He has a lot of he does a great thing where he does strange turns and chord progressions or accidentals that I thought wouldn't make sense, but it does here. He always somehow makes it work, and maybe it's the way he sings, but I don't know, man. I really feel like his melodies are something else. It really is. Another track that I really liked on the album was the second track called Airdrop, which Onestein is also a featuring artist. That track in particular had the same sample as one of Shelby's tracks from his LP last year, and it felt like a complete upgrade. I don't know, a complete update as well. You're also seeing some of your favorite rappers like Justice on here, Loco, Soyun from her band at the end as well. So it's overall a very, very vibey album that starts out a little slow, but like through the middle it picks up and it's like full party mode all of a sudden.
Yeah, this was like on my top 3 album of the year.
Oh wow.
I was like between this one and 2 others that I kept going back and forth with, because I really love it. It was a great comeback. Like I said, we haven't heard from him in a while, so for him to come back with this was just like, wow. And like my favorite track on here, besides Offline, would probably be 4D, which is the one you said with Loco. Just because it has Miso, and Miso is one of my favorite artists that I've been rocking with since like SoundCloud era days.
Oh,
and
wow.
I just, every time I get to hear her, she doesn't put out a lot of stuff. So whenever I hear her, and then she actually is, something different than her normal style on that song. So I love that song, 4D.
Miso is also part of UNO, right?
Yeah, she's one of the artists on there.
Man, they're all doing great. Except for you, Dean. Where's my stupid album from 6 years ago? God damn it. All right, let's move on. What's your 3rd favorite album of this year?
Do you want to save that one for later? and I'll just go into my second one, or you want to talk about that one right now?
We can talk about it. We don't need to go in there.
Okay, good. Yeah. So the third one I have on here is Cinema by R&B artist Say. And kind of like anything with the Rad Museum, it's been a while. People are asking, where's the album? Where's the album? I tried not to get myself too hyped up for it, just because, you know, after a long break, you can tend to do that. And then when the thing comes out, it's kind of underwhelming. But man, she hit it out of the damn park perfectly on this one. I think if I were to give like an R&B album of the year kind of award, it would be this one. Just because it hits so perfectly.
Hold up. You put it on third and you want to give it. What are you talking about?
Well, it's just the reason, kind of like what you said with Palo Alto, where it's just one of those. It might be too recent.
Okay.
Too recent and too much hype behind it. Because when I heard it, I was like, "Oh, this is album of the year," and I immediately put it on my short list. But after a while, I was like, "Okay, let's temper it back." Yeah, this is it's really great. I'd recommend the song "Surprise." Or Experience near the end. Oh my god, that's like my perfect style of R&B. Shows off her vocals perfectly, and yeah, incredible album. Great comeback from her. So, what do you think?
Well, sir, the reason we had that little bit earlier was because this album is actually my favorite R&B album of the year, top one. And I guess I was a little more confident about putting on this list. The moment I went through it a couple times, because I actually came in with zero expectations. Because for me, I wasn't very familiar with who this person is. I knew I listened to her first LP a couple times, and I was like, this is pretty alright. It's not really up my alley. I think it's alright. Previous to her first LP, I believe she was a K-pop artist in a group somewhere that was a little lesser known. I was like, okay, I mean, this person exists, whatever. I don't think it really matters that much. This project came in, it might have been you actually. I don't really remember where, and it went through it, and I was like, wow, this is solid. Because there's two things that I want to touch upon. Where one, this project covers the basis with all of R&B. We're talking about classic stuff. We're talking about PBR&B, the pop stuff. There's like trap in here as well. There's a little bit of jazz thrown in. She pretty much goes through page one to page end of everything about R&B. It feels like I'm reading a textbook about how to be an R&B musician, and she hits it out of the park every moment, every track. And one thing I can say, another thing I want to add is Say is also one of those artists that I typically don't like. I have to admit, I typically don't enjoy artists that are a little overexpressive. Again, Greece in the Greece region, if you know what I mean. Same for Babylon. Same for, if you listen to regular episodes, I said the same thing about Mamamoo members a whole bunch, Ailey a whole bunch. But I feel like with this project, she is able to mix it in perfectly, where all the moments feel incredible, both as a lyricist and a vocalist. Yeah, I really can't pick a single track to recommend out of this album, because all of them are on such a high level of quality, and they all serve a different purpose in the project. If you want to listen to some of the more classical stuff, go check out the front half of the album. Go check out the latter half if you're into more of the PBR&B trap stuff, and you want to, shake the booty per se. But yeah, that's Say. That's Cinema by Say, and stylized with a S:"INEMA by Say, SAAY, which again I understand is not a standard level of spelling, but it is what it is. There you go. Cool. What is your second favorite album of the year for R&B, KME?
Cool. So my second one, and I'll get into a little bit why that's a little bit above Cinema. And the second one would be the Soul by Cell compilation, particularly number one. They came out with 3 of these this year. and it's from Junggi, if I pronounce it right. Another kind of like older R&B kind of dude, similar to Babylon. He's kind of like been around for a while. That's his label is Cell Records, I want to say. So he kind of did this side project called Soul By, and it's kind of showcasing R&B artists that are up and coming and indie artists. But this compilation, when it came out, I was like, oh my god. Main thing is that this is something I've always wanted to do myself, make like a compilation of like up and coming and different types of artists.
Ooh.
I don't know if you remember. I actually hit you up for it a long time ago.
Yeah.
I never went through with the project, but it'll eventually come out. But it's just
let me know.
Perfect little yeah. I'll let you.
I'll send you a track.
So the dope thing about this record is that it's a compilation. It's got a good mix of new, lesser known artists that are up and coming, and a bit of like modern kind of staples. Like Sumin is on there. She got that's my favorite track on there. It's called Miracle. It's produced by a American R&B producer, Devin Morrison. There's also Ocean from the Blue on there. Let's see who else. Summer Soul's on there. Horim is another OG kind of R&B dude that had worked with like Jinbo in back in the day and stuff like that. And there's a lot of lesser known artists like Evie and Jade, or Austin is one on there. But yeah, and then they proceeded to come out with a second and third compilation as well throughout the year. And it's just to me, I'm like, it's whenever someone asks me about KR&B recently, I just kind of throw these at them because it's kind of a good sampler platter. Like you get a little bit of everything, a little bit of sexy vibe R&B with I Wanna from Ocean from the Blue. There's like indie or PB R&B stuff like you're saying with Say. It's kind of like Say's, where it's a little bit of everything. So, and it's one of my most listened to albums this year. So I just really wanted to give that one a shout out. And check out the other two and three are just as good, but I think definitely the first one is my personal favorite.
The third one has a track with I Am of Monsta X in it. For those of you guys who might be curious about Monsta X, go check it out. One thing people don't realize about Junggi is that he's like an R&B OG, like straight up. He has been around since early 2000s as an artist. He was a part of Infinite Flow. He featured in an Infinite Flow track, and he was one of those people that was featuring in everybody's track as their vocalist, like hook person. He was there for like so many tracks. And then eventually he rose to fame with the stuff with Starship. And then he was going around. He was like, I've been around for long and I haven't done much for the industry. I want to help out people. He's been saying that for like half a decade now. And later when I started finding out the Soul by Soul, these series albums is from him, I was like, okay, he finally got around to doing it. I checked it out. I was like, wow, these tracks are great. So please go check it out. For our audio listeners, this is spelled SoulBysel compilation under the artist name Soul by Cell, SoulBysel on Spotify. Cool. All right, I'm going to go into my second favorite album of the year, which is Piece of Space by Kayavant. I assume, again, that's how I read her name. I don't really know. That's Kaiavant. She is one of the newer folks that I started seeing around in, I believe, Minefield Records or Entertainment. And man, this album delivers on one kind of mood and very, very well. So she's doing a different thing from Say, right? Say did a whole bunch of things. Kayavant is doing one thing and one thing really, really well. It's this cold mood. It's just almost like a I don't give a fuck, but kind of a bitch mood with this whole entire project, and it works so well. All of her vocal harmonies feel so effortless. They kind of flow into each other, and it's not like she's just being kind of lazy the entire project. She does go back and forth between some high energy moments and some low energy moments while maintaining the same amount of I don't really give a crap kind of energy. And it's done so well where I couldn't really believe this is her debut. Maybe she has been in the underground for a long time. I don't know. I'm a lot about this person at this point. All I can tell you is that this is probably the most impressive album that I've heard from the Minefield family of folks. Which is a lot of people, right? You have Chillin' Homie, NSW, Yoon. You have people like Kyle Von, but you also have people like Iso, and a whole bunch of other folks. And this was easily something that I continue to go back to because there is a certain level of low energy repetitiveness that I can continuously listen to on the loop. So this was actually one of the albums that I listened to a whole bunch and I never got sick of. I'm for the most part I'm still kind of like that too. So go check it out. Piece of Space by Kyle.
I love that album. It narrowly missed my list, but I found a way to incorporate her into my selections. We'll talk about it later, shortly. But yeah, man, it's just when I had no expectations when I kind of saw this. I was like, oh, okay, this looks cool. Check it out. It was originally the title track "Woohoo" featuring Kid Millie. I saw that music video, and then when that bass hits, I'm like, what? I was just like, what is this, bro? And yeah, and so I immediately ran to the album, and I was just jaws on the floor, just amazing, beautiful piece of work. I love her voice. I've been describing it as like if IU and Sumin had like and like because she has that kind of like high pitch, kind of a little bit of whiny, but can still drop it like a lower tone, but it's still, I don't know. That's the way I can only describe it. But it's everything you just said. I totally agree with. Amazing album. I haven't heard from her. I barely. First time ever listening to her was this album, and I went back and she's been around since 2020 doing like YouTube, SoundCloud stuff, and so man, like what a pickup for Minefield. Crazy talented artist. So definitely on my radar for the future.
Yeah, go check it out. For some reason, when you mentioned that she kind of sounds like Sumin with IU put together, I thought of like there was a strange image of like Sumin doing like Good Day live stages that IU used to do. I was like, that doesn't fit.
I would like to see that. I don't care what else.
Oh man, the Sumin remix of IU, please. That would be great. But yeah, no, her voice is like silk, but like very rough silk. You know what I mean? Like there's a bit of edge to it, but it's very, very, very smooth. It's crazy. Go check it out. All right, let's move on to your favorite album of the year with R&B.
Cool. So my favorite one that I chose on here was American Gothic. Technically an EP, I guess you could say.
Is it?
Yeah, from Davida, AOMG artist. The reason I picked this was because it is literally my most played, besides on Korean artists that I've been really into this year, Biba Doobie. This is my most played. Everything, every single track is like the top of my numbers of like Scrabbles and stuff like that. So Davida is one of my favorite artists, R&B artists, singers in general. I said before, she was on AOMG. She was on 8 Ball Town, Hidden record label beforehand, where I first heard her. And yeah, just to see her kind of develop and grow since going to AOMG and having the resources of that label is just, fantastic. The music videos on this are perfect. It's kind of a concept album that's inspired by the 2000 movie American Beauty. Kind of why it's called American Gothic. She said like every track is kind of from a perspective of either the main character or characters in that movie. That's something I've always wanted to kind of dive into and check out what the similarities, but I haven't watched that movie in a long time. But yeah, I love her voice. It's one of those albums that I can just throw on, put it on loop, and just continue with no skips, never ever. So yeah, main track I would recommend is Bonnie and Clyde, which is the title. Really great creative music video. I think one of my favorite music videos of the year. So that's why it's my number one R&B album.
Wow. I'll be honest, I haven't checked this out too much, but I'm gonna have to go back and check it out. It is one of those albums that I occasionally play in the mornings, where cause it's so groovy but like so mellow, and it really works well when I'm like not fully awake yet and I'm not ready for like louder music. But it does pick up later, and it's a great moment here and there. So, yeah, go check it out. American Gothic by Davida. All right. We're gonna move on to our next section, which we're gonna combine. We're gonna look at hip hop and R&B together, and we're gonna pick some rookies of the year. We're gonna look at the label of the year, and we're gonna look at the artist of the year. Now, a bit of a disclaimer: the reason we're combining these two together is because, well, there's a lot of hip hop awards in Korea that kind of handle them together. So I was like, okay, I might as well do a similar thing here. And they kind of go well together. So, all right, we're gonna start with rookie of the year. Since I went first with album of the year, I'll give you the first go with rookie of the year for hip hop and R&B this year. KME.
Cool. So, I'll be brief on mine since we've already kind of talked about her. So my rookie of the year pick for here, is K-HipHop. Yeah, just for the pure fact, like I said before, that was the first time ever hearing from her, and I was just absolutely mind blown by that album, how great it was. And a lot of times when it comes to me picking a like favorite rookie or best new artist, is not really half of it is what they've out throughout the year, but also it's my anticipation for what they're going to do in the future. And my anticipation for her career and what she comes out next is through the roof. So yeah, that's my rookie of the year. A little bit different because spoiler alert for I mean, not really because it's already going to be out. My best new artist is actually an idol group for the official KME one. New Jeans is
there we go.
That's the one. Yeah, the rookie phenoms of this year, that are not Ive or Le Seraphim. But yeah, so K-HipHop, rookie of the year for my pick.
K-HipHop is great. I'm so excited for her. And I kind of approached rookie of the year in a similar manner as well, where I was thinking about who stood out this year and who I'm excited for and I'm anticipating for next year. And that for me was Tamini. Now, you might be more familiar with her appearance on Show Me the Money recently. As of this recording, she's still surviving on the show. Maybe she's eliminated by the time this episode goes out. I don't know. Who knows? But Damini has been getting so many shoutouts throughout the year, and it's been incredible because every track she releases, I feel like she evolves. Now, that being said, I think a lot of people don't enjoy her extremely aggressive style of rap. Understandably so. I would feel the same way. And in fact, if I were to listen to like a hour 30 full-on project by Damini, I probably couldn't handle it. I would lose my shit. So in that aspect, I understand where people are coming from, and that's what I'm hoping / anticipating / excited for next year, because I would like to see how she kind of works with that and works around that to create a more of a comprehensive project that showcases what she's really, really good at, but is able to pace herself better, because a lot of the tracks that she released this year, some did, some didn't do that. So yeah, Damini, I'm really excited for her next year.
She's awesome, dude. Like, the first time I heard her was, I think, this year with that Hook P Wolves kind of like posse track, and I was just like, what is this? Because she has a very abrasive style and voice.
Oh yeah.
I actually kind of worry about her voice because I think she purposely like screws it up or like yells before performing to like get it that raspy. But yeah, like you said, it's a little. I can see how it could be off-putting, like a kind of like a Sogum type, where it's just if you're into it, if you're not, it's kind of your personal thing.
Right.
But yeah, she's dope. She's dope. I'm really excited to see what she does or what label. She's not on a label or anything, is she?
Not yet. There is a rumor going around that she's joining Minefield soon because she's been hanging out with those folks, but not official yet. So who knows?
Would make sense. But yeah, she's dope. When I saw you pick this, I was like, oh, that I totally didn't realize that is true. She's very, very new. I was was the first time I heard of her this year.
She literally came out of nowhere. And I was like, damn it, why is she so good? All right. We're moving on to label of the year. I will go first this time. And for me, my pick is Daytona Entertainment. That's right. I'm wearing their t-shirt. I don't know why I did that. Daytona Entertainment I feel like they've been doing a great job this year of releasing all these amazing projects. A couple that I can think of off the top of my head, Toil and Lil Mars had a collab album called Toy Story 3, which I did like more over their first two. And in fact, one of the tracks, BBB, went kind of viral because it was clearly trying to be a stupid meme, and it worked really, really well. But people like Palo Alto signed on, joined them board, and did this crazy album, Dirt, that we mentioned earlier. Fana dropped Fanatic 2, which technically came out last year, but I'm going to count it because it was like December 20th or 23rd, something like that, right before Christmas last year, so I'm still counting it. So they dropped all these cool albums, signed all these cool people, but not only that, one thing that I really respect is they opened up a record store in Mapo in Seoul in Korea. And that might just sound like they're trying to make more money. I understand. But at the same time, if you have been listening to hip hop for a long time, if you respect the culture, you kind of understand the importance of DJ, disco jockey, DJing culture, and the role LP plays in that. Records, if you think about the way records are kind of becoming more popular and hip again as a collector's item in Korea, I guess it kind of makes sense. But it really feels like they're trying out new things that other people haven't before as this culture grows. In particular, the Quiet Yumta and Palo Alto, the three folks, as well as the DJ. I forget his name. I'm so sorry. There are four folks who are working on the record label together. Record stores together. And I think it's really, really cool. And I really hope it continues to grow. Yeah, it's just something we haven't seen before, and it's a new layer to the way we approach this culture. So, shout outs to Daytona Entertainment.
Wow.
Shout outs. All right, cool. Moving on. Who is your label of the year?
So, my label of the year, and this is an official KME pick label of the year as well, is Amoeba Culture, dynamic duos.
Let's go.
Very own. And the reason I picked this, like when I look for label of the year, is usually kind of mind share they take up for me throughout the year, where I'm constantly seeing their artists or stuff that the label is doing. And that was very much the case when I was kind of looking back. I was like, there wasn't really a label that really stood out to me. And then when I went to look back, I was like, oh my God, like Amoeba Culture has been there throughout the whole year, every step of the way. They had all their artists. I think every artist on their roster dropped some type of project. Dama had a couple of triple singles that dropped after giving at the KME official album of the year of last year, 2021. Soul, young R&B singer, she dropped her first full-length album, I believe, her debut full album, and it's just one of the top 5 album of the year for me. Really nice, really like her style is very, soft spoken, and the album feels a little bit dreamlike and soft. Who else? Every artist on there, I think Dynamic Duo had a couple singles. I think each Geiko and Choisa each dropped their own single projects or EPs. Geiko actually released a single with his wife that was kind of super uber cute.
Aww.
Well, Sensei, I believe, dropped a couple of things. Man, it was just like all over the place. I was like, wow, this is a lot of stuff. And another cool thing that reason I picked this label is because they started a kind of like a support project called The Seed, which is where they kind of bankrolled and put out artists that are not technically signed to the label, and gave them a chance to kind of put out something. So they put out a couple of those from producer Ian. Is it Ian Cash? Yeah, Ian Cash. What else? There's indie band that put out an album through that Seed project called Youth Hostel. And what was the first one? I think um Chamain, yeah. Was a is a rapper who's been around for a while. If you watch the Show Me the Money, he's been around for there. They put out his album and it was really cool, really vibey. Um, and and they signed Huh, which formerly Rose the Penny. He put out his debut album on there as well. So everything they dropped, it was just very solid. I remember enjoying every single one. Besides the Soul album, I wouldn't say there's like oh wow, this is a amazing game changer breaker album of the year, release of the year type thing. But everything was solid, perfect, and I wanted to give Amoeba Culture a shout out because I feel like over the last few years they kind of are re-emerging after having a few years of maybe not being the ones that they used to be the house of like Crush, Zion T, Rhythm Power, freaking Supreme Team, and there's been a lot of controversy and they've went through a lot of deals through the past years, and all those artists left, and now they're kind of rebuilding their roster and redoing their image, and I really respect that and see where they have been because all their artists to me are hitting on such a great level. So shout out to Amoeba Culture. That's my label of the year.
I'll be honest, I was pretty surprised by the pick because don't get me wrong, I checked out Soul's album. It was great. I checked out 926 by Hall. That was also really great. I had no clue they were a part of Amoeba Culture, I'll be honest. Which in hindsight makes sense if you look at the featuring list, but I think for a long time I was kind of in the same boat where like, oh, like their golden roster, Simon D, Essence, Zion T, Crush, Primary, they're not there anymore. Blah, 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 blah. And I kind of lost interest for a while, but I don't know. I think my image of them has just changed all of a sudden in the past, like, I don't know, 5 minutes of you explaining. So that's crazy. Amoeba Culture. Let's go. All right. We are at the last pick for hip hop and R&B music. We're going to pick the artist of the year. I frankly have still not chosen. I have two on here that I'm going to choose from. It's going to be a game time decision. But you know what, KME, I'll give you the lead. Who is your artist of the year for hip hop and R&B music?
Cool. So we've talked about him a little bit as well before, but my artist of the year, and this is also official KME artist of the year, and that is Diesel, a rapper from Deja Vu Group. Signed with that label this year, dropped an album called 2KZM.zip, which was phenomenal. Same kind of. He's also a producer, so I think he produced a lot of tracks on that album. But there's a lot of hard hitting, like I said before, hard hitting, dope verses. Really is one of the artists that when I choose artist of the year, it's always kind of the artist that I mess with the whole year. And I found myself every time trying to like either insert him into like a top 5 list or one of his albums, or he was constantly on the brain throughout the whole year. And both this album and the collab with Freddie Casso were just all full albums, all in my daily rotation. So I was constantly listening to him, never got tired, never skipped them. So yeah, I think that was the reason I went ahead and chose Diesel. Just cool to see him. Kind of a breakout year as well, like you were kind of mentioning. He was kind of in the background of like Kundi Panda's shadow before with, or kind of joining Deja Vu Group. But this year, I think he really came out and made a statement on his own. So that is my artist of the year, Diesel.
Yeah, no, I do feel like this album was 2KZM.zip was one of those albums that felt very short. I didn't even realize it was an LP. It's like, I'm looking at it right now, it's 19 minutes. And typically in hip hop, LPs are like 12 tracks ish, 30 minutes ish. But in hindsight, I guess it kind of makes sense because like it was, maybe if it was a little longer, it would have been a little more draggy because there is a level of aggression that I think kind of similar to his collab with Freddie Casso earlier. He did a really good job of controlling and not going too overboard. Yeah, not who I expected at all, but I think 100% makes sense. Diesel's been having a great year so far, and way better than his other label mates. Actually, now that I think about it, from Deja Vu. So there you go, Diesel. All right, I had two. I chose one. I'm gonna give my artist of the year pick to Lob on a Beat. That's his name, Lob on a Beat. Previously known as Lobster. He is one of those people who have been doing trap music for a long time, and in fact, he is. There's every now and then I feel like there's a wave of like trap musicians that come in and do their thing. Lob on a Beat, I think, is one of the people who have been at the very front and foremost. He's been at the very front lines of doing the trendiest and yet some of the most grooviest rap out there in terms of trap music. His EP this year, Lob on a Tune 2, was it? I forget. Let me look this up.
Ooh, yeah, I believe.
Right. Lob on a Tune 2 was, dare I say, it was very short, and I really wish it was longer. It's only 15 minutes. Good God. But like, it's not a single minute is wasted. He does a great job of building a groove and a beat, and writing it. And I think he does a really incredible job in the recent single too, Birthday, which he did a track with Bill Stax, and that was almost my song of the year because of how addicting his whole chorus is. Man, Labana Trick. I don't know, something about his lazy style of rapping is incredible. And I'm really excited for. I was really excited for this year, but I'm also excited for next year, where he is starting up a label, I believe called Skrr Gang, something like that. Which I know I'm saying it. I know it sounds stupid, and that's a part of the appeal. I have to admit that's part of that's part of the appeal with Okay, I'm looking at his label name. It's actually stupider than what I just said. It's called. I can't believe I'm reading this. His label name that he is now the CEO of is called Skrr Gang Business.
Yeah, let's go.
He signed Bill Stax to his company recently. He's crewmates with Bill Stax as well as other folks on TNF, so we'll see who it turns up with. But I don't know. If someone asks me who is the best trap musician right now in 2022, I have to say Lob on a Beat. Well, yeah, great lad.
Yeah. I was like re-listening to some of his stuff earlier in preparation. And I messaged you. I was like, dude, he's so good. It was definitely that Lob on a Tune 2, like between that one and the Young Jaundice record. I was like, oh, which one? So I'm glad you put him on the list somehow. But yeah, it's so good, really good. For me, I love listening to, like, it's like one of those kind of music you bump in your car, like driving around.
Yeah. Oh man, it kind of sucks that I can't drive in New York, but goddamn. Oh yeah, no. I do have to give my shout outs to the other guy who I didn't choose, which was Blase. And I almost chose him because I recognize that he is at the very front, and he was at the very front lines of leading this UK drill trend that's going through Korea right now. And in fact, he deserves all of it because I feel like he's doing an incredible job. And in fact, he proved himself to another level with his LP this year called Multroverse. But I don't know. I think Lob on a Beat takes the win here because I think he's just really good at what he does. Okay. All right. Okay. And that was everything we have for today with hip hop and R&B music. I know that earlier in today's episode, we mentioned something about going through all the other genres, and there being a first half and a second half. Change of plans. We're going to do that later next week. We ran over a little bit. We had a lot of good conversation. So today we're going to end it here. But next week, December 27th, we'll be releasing our favorite picks for alternative pop, electronic, folk jazz, rock, and wildcard. And we're going to be going through it a lot more quickly, I imagine, because we're not going through like multiple albums and like we're not doing the whole industry stuff that we did at the end of what we just did. All right. So I think for now, that's all we have for today. KME. I'm going to continue recording with you in about 5 minutes, but I'm gonna act like I'm gonna be talking to you in a week. So, until then, I hope you have a good week. Yeah, how do we end these shows?
Bye.
Bye, bye. All right, bye, everybody. Special shout outs to our Fiesta patrons: Bagel, Based Mina, Brian, Shadow, Cotton Ball, Delmonic, Ellie, Genki Boy, Goku Mama, Jacob, Liam's Games and Toys, Luke Daniels, and Jay Parks. Tier, thank you for joining SojuTalk. And special thanks to our Discord server mods: Jacob, K Music Erday, Koala, Max, No Bias Luna, Tuggles, and Wolf297.